So hello and welcome to this meeting of Inverclyde Council's Social Work and Social Care Scrutiny panel. This meeting is being held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record council meetings to fulfil our public task obligations to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with council published policies available through the council's website. Members of the council are reminded that they should follow the council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. So I'll now hand over to Diane for apologies, substitutions and declarations of interest. Diane.
We have apologies for absence from Provost Mackenzie. Convener will now move to the roll call before asking for declarations of interest. Can the following members please indicate if present at the meeting, either in person or remotely? Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brooks.
In chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Daisley.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Jackson.
In the chamber.
Councillor McCluskey.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Quinn.
Present remotely.
Councillor Reynolds.
Present remotely.
And Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Councillor McCluskey.
Thank you. Just this standing declaration I've got in relation to item 9, by virtue of a close family member being one of the care homes that are mentioned, but it's not subject to any officer recommendations, so I don't think there's any declaration of conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Cassidy.
Yeah, I have a correction to declare related to item 9 on the agenda. I raised on a relatively important one of the organisations mentioned in the report. I've applied that object to the text and I don't consider having interest in there because this is not yet vote for voting and not subject to any other specific comment.
Thank you. We'll now move on to item 2. So that is the revenue and capital budget report. So I'm handing over to Craig Gibbon to take us through this paper. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you very much for yourself, Convener. This is the P3 monitoring report. This is our standard finance paper that we bring forward at the Scrutiny panel cycle, and this covers a number of main areas. These are the 2022-23 outcome position, our current 23-24 projected position, our current capital position, and our reserves position. At year, at year end, we had a social care underspend of £2.407 million, and this is obviously subject to audit. This was an improved position by £395,000 compared to period 11. This was mainly due to vacancies in all our major areas of our service, but especially in older adults, and also due to reduction in external care provider spend. As at PD3, we're currently projecting an underspend of £109,000 in the social care budget. There are a number of over and under spends which pretty much can't meet each other out at this early stage. Children and family are currently projecting a £2 million overspend, mainly due to packages of care, and this is an area that Jonathan and his team are currently doing a thorough review of a thorough service review in this particular area. We do have a smoothing reserve for this kind of pressure for this year, but at this point, overall, within the total budget, we're not looking to do this just yet. This is mainly offset by continued underspends in our older person budget, our learning disabilities, physical disabilities, assessment and care management, and mental health vacancies for underspends. Moving on to the capital, section 4 shows the current capital position. At this point, we're not showing any significant spend to date. This is likely to be incurred later on in the financial year, especially the bigger projects you've announced, such as a land disability company project. Appendix 5 shows our overall earmarked reserves position, and this shows we started this year with 24.262 million, and we expect to spend and finish the year at 16.443 million, and this is based on our current projections. At this point, obviously, appreciate it's a very in-depth and financial paper. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, thanks very much, Craig. I'm just taking a wee look. There's nothing in the chat, and I see, sorry, Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I suppose, like everybody else, kind of hard sight and see the drug death figures that came out last week. Again, one of the most marginalised groups of people in society are affected by this. When you look at the underspend we have in that area, I'm just wondering what we're going to do to use this money. Why do this underspend? Well, could you explain what kind of employee, what kind of staff shortages there is? Is this based on or more focused on harm reduction than abstinence? This facilities illness, we want to get this underspend again.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Jackson. I'll just hand over to Gail Cobain, and thanks for bringing it up, because I know that I'm sure we're all agreed in this room that every single one of the drugs tests is a tragedy, and thanks for raising that. Gail.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. And yet, as interim head service for mental health, addiction and homelessness, I'm very disheartened by the figures that have come out, last week around the drug deaths and this week around the alcohol deaths. I think for us as a service last year, and I comment on two bits from the budget that's around the service. So we were allocated money through the ADP last year to increase our staffing capacity. A lot of the money that was given to us is fixed term funding over sort of 5 years, and so recruitment to those posts was quite challenging, because it got staff who are in permanent contracts to bring them in on sort of 3 or 5 year contracts has been really challenging. So what we've done with the ADP is we've worked with them to say, how can we make our contracts longer? So I'm quite confident that this year we've got a much better staffing model going forward. So we've got as many staff as we can in the alcohol and drug recovery service as we can. From an ADP perspective, we've probably increased all the recovery work that's going on locally. So we would expect we'll be working with our finance colleagues to make sure that we won't be in that position going forward. And where we start to see any additional funds coming in or any slippage on the budget, we'll look at how we can allocate that, but we are absolutely running at capacity within the alcohol and drug recovery service.
Thanks, Gail.
Can I
Councillor
just
Jackson.
ask the question about people personally? So, what kind of work do you want? What's not available? Who's not for the jobs?
Okay, so we have a number of posts. We have health and social care posts. Our social care workforce, we're probably around about capacity now. So after the service redesign, we redesigned the staffing model. So we have senior drug and alcohol workers and alcohol and drug workers within the service. So we're pretty much at capacity there. We've increased our nursing staff around the alcohol and drug liaison service. So our work in hospitals, our work in primary care, our work with the police, across the sort of totality with justice, so we put a bigger liaison team in there. But again, because we felt that was a very sort of specialist type of work, because it's an assessment, it's a formal assessment to bring people in for care and treatment around the MAT standards. So that has been really difficult for us to recruit to these posts because of the fixed term funding. But I think we've probably got pretty much all the posts in place now, but it has taken us a long time to get there. But we have a full team, nursing, social care staff, senior social care staff, and psychology, which has taken us significant time to recruit to, but we do have a preferred candidate, but they're not starting until November. So medical staff as well, but again, we've got a full complement now within the service.
I think
Can I
just
ask
briefly, thanks, Councillor Jackson, yeah, that would be fine then, I think, yeah. I was saying just briefly, that would be great.
No, I just want to ask a question. Are we more focused, we are 100% focused on harm reduction rather than looking at alternative?
Yeah, and harm reduction is very much a focus through the ADP, as you know. So the rollout of naloxone, the near fatal overdose work that we're doing across Scottish Ambulance Service, we're picking up people who are at high risk of overdose, falling out of treatment across all areas. So that's probably where we're working in close partnership with all our other agencies to make sure that we are identifying people who are most risk of harm, and we're providing them with the right interventions, both through the recovery communities and within the statutory services. So quite a lot of detailed work going into that. And I'm more than welcome, I'd more than welcome a chat offline if that's still okay. Thanks.
Thanks very much, and it's not at all to be brief on that particular subject, because I think looking around everybody in the room, we all know exactly how important it is and how much we want to see things changing in that direction. Statistics or not, we need to see that people with substance misuse and things like that are really changing here, that I think everybody in here would be unusual if they're not affected by it in some way personally. So I'd really appreciate you bringing that up, especially as we're getting towards Recovery Month. Thanks to everyone involved in the work that's going into preparing this report, and I think it's just like to agree to most of it.
Good.
Okay, so we're on to item number 3, that's the National Care Service update, and I think John Payne's giving us this update, this meeting of the panel. Thanks, John.
Thank you. The report is really a brief cover report for the Minister for Social Care, Wellbeing and Sport that was last month. And I suppose there's a few key elements within the letter, given the longer timescales for the stage 1 scrutiny of the proposed bill going to January next year. First is the agreed support between the Scottish Government and CROSSFIT for a new framework, which proposes shared legal accountability for social care and social work, and obviously seeks to address some of the concerns about a shift of responsibility towards the centre, perhaps, but it also has a built-in aim around trying to get consistent outcomes and a framework for delivery across the country. The letter also gives a very brief update on a programme of engagement forums that took place over the summer across the country, and some online sessions as well, particularly targeting people with lived experience of services to inform the development of the model. And it also refers to the continuing programme of research that has been commissioned by Scottish Government Celsius. 3 reports, 4 were published, and the 4th report is underway at the minute. Kicked off by a staff survey, primarily for social work and allied services, with a survey going online shortly for health staff as well. So that's really about trying to hear the voice of the workforce in considering the future model for social work and social care provision. Since the report was submitted for this meeting with the panel, I attended an in-person national meeting last week of Chief Social Work Officers, where we looked a bit further at different models of integration so far, given that there's quite a variety of integration models across Scotland, really to try and identify some of the strengths and some of the challenges of those models. And we've fed that in, as well as looking at the proposal within the bill for the National Social Work Agency component, and what that could include as well. It's fair to say that that's still very much under development, but we felt as a group of professional representatives for social work that it was important to get that at a time at our national meeting last week. So we will feed that through Social Work Scotland to the workforce survey as well. And clearly, whenever there's any further update on the proposals around the National Care Service, I'll certainly bring it back to this panel. But happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. Councillor History.
Thanks, Kavina. Thanks, Jonathan, for the update. I'm always conscious when I ask questions about this. You're not responsible for the content of the paper, but maybe in the discussions you've been having with government, you can tell us a little bit more about what's going on in here. 2 points really. One is it's really good to see things starting to move in the right direction, particularly in light of where we were a year ago, especially with the joint accountability between local government and central government, and also with the longer kind of timetable for co-design. So hopefully more thought being put in there. I suppose the disappointment is that this has taken this long to start, and that this isn't where these discussions started a year ago, and we've lost a year in the meantime. I'm also conscious in your covering note that it says that the bill, they want to try and conclude stage one by the end of January 2024. Now, one of the things that was highlighted in our response, the council's response to the original consultation on the bill, was that what was in the primary legislation was very thin and left an awful lot to secondary legislation, and left a lot of the detail in ministers' hands. Is there any indication from government at the moment as to whether there's going to be changes made to the current draft bill, and whether some of those things that were being left to the minister's discretion are now part of the main bill? Thank you.
On your final point, Councillor, I have no other insight or information on that. I think that going back to your earlier point about the timescales around the development of the model, I suppose I'm very conscious of how long we've had our current integration arrangements, just how varied those are, how they've developed in different directions across the country. So bringing 31 or 32 variations of the theme together to try and develop a coherent view on that, I'm sure is very challenging, but certainly as the leaders of the profession in each of the HSCPs, it was really interesting last week just to hear the variety of views about particularly whether the National Care Service model should include children and justice services, or be primarily focused on adult services. Again, going back to the origins of the thinking around the National Care Service bill, but probably no surprise that you've got 32 chief social work officers, you've got at least 33 opinions on that. But obviously I will continue to keep you informed as that work develops nationally.
Thanks.
Okay, no further questions or comments for you on that one, so I think we just agree to vote the correspondence. Thank you. Okay, so item 4, it's the Rapid Rehousing Transition Plan Annual Review from 2022-23. So Gail's going to take us through this paper that's got some new highlights from that period. Some areas for interface matching and national picture, and then others where there's a bit of variation. So Gail's going to talk us through that report. Thanks, Gail.
Thank you, Convener. This report has previously been to the IJE for approval, so it's here for today. The RRTP, the Rapid Rehousing Transition Plan, is the national strategy for getting people into homeless people out of homelessness and into housing first. We have had a 5-year plan in operation, and as we went through work last year, we implemented a change programme to drive forward the full service redesign, which focused on delivering on the RRTP. So as a result of that, we've had significant growth in the Housing First model, with 41 people currently being supported, 17 in Housing First tenancies and 3 overs pending. So quite a difference in what we had in the past around sort of long-term homelessness. We've had a range of people moving from temporary flats to flipped accommodation. So again, our long-term homeless numbers are significantly down. We've had a 10% decrease in the number of applications. So as we've gone through the 4 high-level objectives, reducing the need for temporary accommodation by preventing homelessness, we've gone through this work which has actually helped us to achieve our higher objectives. So as we move forward in the model, we're looking for what our future homeless model will look like. We'll be looking to reduce the number of temporary homeless units that we'll be delivering. Where we have people with low and no support needs, we've worked directly in conjunction with the RSLs locally to make sure that people are far settled in their housing much quicker, so that stops them being in homeless in the homeless service for longer than they need to be. And as we've implemented the Housing First model, people who have normally been excluded from homelessness, from tenancies. We've worked with the RSLs to put support in and make sure that they've acquired tenancy. And as we move forward in the model, where we need specialist supported accommodation, we'll start to look at the numbers. So this will help us move forward in our homeless model. So I think that some of the things have been real highlights to us have been how we've engaged with our RSL providers, how we've undertaken training across the partnership to make sure that we're all moving in the same direction. So where we've used our TP funding up to now, we're setting up sort of support packages with people to make sure that their complex needs are being met to help us plan, obtain and sustain our tenancy going forward. So the report has gone forward to the Scottish Government, it was submitted, and we're just waiting for feedback on that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Gail. I see questions or comments coming from Councillor Daisley and then Councillor Robertson to start as well. Councillor Daisley.
Thanks, convener. Just referring to page 48, which is the graph which shows the staff morale survey outcome 2023. The three highest scoring points on that: number 4, peer relationships; number 8, peer appreciation; and number 9, peer respect. Can you just clarify? Because I can't see it in the report unless I missed it. Is 10? What's the weighting of that score? Is 10 positive or is 10 negative?
Yes, 10 is more positive, so 0 is not good and then 10 is good.
So reading that would mean peer relationship appreciation and respect are positive, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Okay,
thanks, yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Daisley. Councillor Robertson.
Thanks, Camilla. So my thoughts on this are well documented in terms of I really think this is the right direction for us to travel in, giving people the dignity of a house first and then putting support around them to support a tenancy is absolutely right and the humane and the just thing to do. So you already know from my fulsome praise at the IJB that I think this is the right direction for us to move in. A question that I do have is, now that we are a wee bit further down the line, do we have a sense of how people are reacting to the change and how we are providing services for them and how we're treating them at this vulnerable point in their own journeys?
Yeah, thank you for your help, convener. And obviously, as we start to look at the sort of long term or sort of longer term sustainability of that support, we've got a number of people who are needing less support, but actually we will have a group of people who will need that continued support as we go through. Probably some of the big things that are quite stark in terms of what people need support with: very basic household, how to run a house, and very basic budgeting and personal care skills, and food hygiene, cooking skills and that. So as people are moving through, we're seeing some successes, and I think we're starting to look at some of the engagement with individual service users to say what difference and what impact has it made on you. And we're doing a bit of work with Your Voice around that to actually try and capture that and say this is what difference it's making for people. But we are seeing people in their tenancies longer.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes.
Can I request that when that work's done that we get some sight of it? Just I think it's really important that if we are, and I really do, I feel like in my gut this is the right thing to do, but I'd like the evidence from the people who are actually at the whole face of this that it is the right thing, and it's not just my assumptions.
Sure, thanks very much for that. Thanks, Gail, as well. I think we've definitely really got some case studies already in that report, so it's great to see them and great to get that positivity for the Housing First model. Councillor Brooks, then Councillor Jackson. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks very much. Again, welcome to the report. It's great to see it, and I think everybody, I'm not aware of anybody who's not, but for the avoidance of doubt, and I know it's a public meeting, this transition plan has not been affected at all by asylum seekers or refugees in Inverclyde. That's a separate money, it's a separate pot. This has not been affected by these two groups.
Not at all.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, thanks. When I read the report, the first half of the report we called it, I don't disagree with what anyone say, but further in the report, we started to get context of the the deprivation of the housing situation within Inverclyde. I suppose my worry is when it comes to somewhere like the homeless centre, is we have a lot of people in there who've got addiction and mental health issues who make up predominantly the majority of the homeless. My concern is, and it's concerns that's been raised, I spoke to a number of people who have been in the Inverclyde centre. I thought with Elizabeth does a lot of good work. The concern is taking these people out and putting them into a house in areas with high deprivation for, and there's a lot of drug abuse where they themselves are exposed to a lot of risks. I know you talked about the around support appeal, but these people themselves have raised these concerns and not with me, but in discussion, no conversation with them, they themselves worry about getting placed in areas where they will be put at risk. So I'd maybe like to hear a wee bit more about the support that's going to be offered to somebody. I mean, one of the guys I spoke to, and it was he offered me something about sleep where there's two people dealing in that property, another one in Scott Street, where there was somebody dealing with people with high risk areas, people who are at high risk of maybe a methadone program to start using drugs again.
Yes, please recognise. I suppose there's a couple of things that are really challenging to us as a service, the deprivation and things like drug dealing. That's out with my gift of change. Where we can provide sort of more support is we will work with the housing associations to look at, and we do the police hub call 3 times a week. So any information that we have about areas, we are sharing that. We do a refresh with the RSLs about our temporary accommodation. So we're not actively, where an area feels a bit less stable for us, we will ask for that property to be handed back as a temporary accommodation. The wraparound support is based on assessed need, and if somebody's needs are so great that the risk of them going into that tenancy is too high, we will leave them in the centre, because there's far more happening. That also poses risk because you have too many people with high risk and sort of high volatile behaviour. So we need to get the balance right, and it's a balancing act every day sometimes to make sure that we've got the right people and the right support in the community, but also the right people and the right support within the centre. So we're continually working with our colleagues across mental health justice to make sure that we're getting the right support at the right time. But very much take your point, it's work in progress for us.
I mean, given it's not personally my fault, the support aspirations within this report, but my fear is the realisation is the social context of so many of them, so many of life is you can be as aspirations as you want, but if your goals aren't there, and the place is not as problems to seek when it comes to the issues raised in that part of the report. So it's not that same day to support aspirations, but good ones on that.
Yeah, and I think that's it. We need to be aspirational for our people. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, so I think that report was really wonderful for information, so nothing to agree on for that, but thanks very much for all those questions and comments. So we're on to item 5, which is the I Promise plan, an update for Norton on local progress in relation to I Promise. I'm going to pass over to Jonathan to introduce this paper. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, Convener. As members will know, within Clyde we have been taking forward a range of activities since the development of Promise's key national policy, with the development of I Promise over the last couple of years. Our local team works very closely in partnership with third sector colleagues and has continued to develop awareness and improvement activity across the Clyde. The report before you will be spoken to, but I'm going to hand over to Leslie Ellis as our Promise lead to talk to the report and provide some further clarification.
Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks for convener. So the purpose really of this report is to update on Inverclyde's Promise plan and Inverclyde's progress within the national landscape of the Promise. As you know, the I Promise proposal set out a plan for a small dedicated team to work across Inverclyde, and this is a collaborative approach with CBS, Your Voice, and we also now have a care experience children apprentice working with us who is just fantastic and keeps us on target for what we are hoping to achieve. We've noted within the report a number of national reports that have followed on from the Independent Care Review and the Promise, and that's really to guide all of our Promise activity. Our current plan that we're working on is Plan 21 to 24, and that has 80 plus calls to action contained within it, right across the 5 priority areas, which you'll recall as good childhood, whole family support, planning, supporting the workforce, and building capacity. The Promise Scotland produced a mapping tool to help local areas measure and track data around the progress of these areas. Nationally, the Improvement Service reviews how local government is planning for the Promise, and the Oversight Board published their second report, including which focused on the main areas, brothers and sisters, education and homelessness, and other work is required around this. The Oversight Board has considered that additional aims, Plan 21 to 24 can be delivered within the timescale. It has proposed therefore there will be a whole set of indicators and stretch targets for each indicator to measure progress in line with the next plan, which will actually be 2040-30, which is one more plan rather than 2 original plans that were originally set out. Here in Inverclyde, our team has been continuing to consult and raise awareness right across the whole of Inverclyde with our children, young people, families and the workforce. And this includes our Proud to Care and Champions Board. Proud to Care meet weekly, which is a participation group including care experienced children and young people who are very much influencing and driving positive change here in Inverclyde. They created our language film and Language Matters guide that I believe some of you have seen. They've also just created a children's hearing film as well. I Promise Board is our governance group, and they have oversight of everything that the I Promise team do. It's chaired by 2 of our care experienced young people and our chief executive. The group meets quarterly and representation includes council, corporate directors, chief officer, service managers for health, CLD, Scottish Fire and Rescue, Police Scotland, Barnardo's, Your Voice, Housing, Action for Children, Children's First and SCRA and also CHS. As part of its governance role, updates are provided to the board on progress against 21, our Plan 21 to 24. The Promise Board also guides our Promise Practitioners Forum, and this is a multi-agency group who meet 6 to 8 weekly, which supports our operational development and delivery against the actions of the 5 local areas, but also with our stop and go pledges, which are detailed within the report. We're launching in September our Inverclyde Promise Keepers recruitment from across the community, being drawn from multi-agency partners as local champions for the Promise and their role. This will include awareness raising within their service, ensuring children and young people are listened to, and reviewing the language used in their service. I Promise Keepers will receive training and development over the next year as part of a wider network to encourage collaboration and partnership working across services in Inverclyde. I Promise and Hearings meet 6 to 8 weekly as well as a steering group to deliver the plan of work and focus on children, young people and family with voice and advocacy and how the plans will run being just some of the actions. Our public awareness of I Promise includes social media, where we've also had local events that have taken place with Proud to be Active over the past couple of years, which have been very well attended. We have a number of practice changes that the report notes, and these have been co-designed with our children, young people and our families. One example being the HSCP wellbeing templates. They're more accessible and there is a greater emphasis on reflecting the views of our children and young people. We also now have our Mind About My Own app, and we now have 100 people trained in that, and that's to gather the views of children and young people on a digital platform, which again the Promise stipulates. We also have just rolled out our hub kits, which were developed by our young people for children moving into some of our children's houses or with our foster carers. Other activity underway includes a funding bid that looks at family time improvement plan, and that's really to enhance the space where children meet with their families. We also want to develop life skills towards independent living for our young people as well, which has been a real focus. Another partnership approach is being developed, and that's with an external partner, and that's to create small funding opportunities for ideas from staff, and that will lead to co-design and transformational change. Our corporate parenting event was rescheduled, that will now take place in October, and which will include our Proud to Care young people and also other young people that are going to be part of our Columba 1400 leadership programme. So that will increase the numbers that will attain that along with our corporate parents. The corporate parenting plan that will be written from that will be part of our promise delivery plan along with our youth collective launch and our family voice collective. That includes parental engagement, and that will again be launched at the start of September. Work is continuing in terms of our whole family support, in terms of the Welcome Cup and our intensive support. And all of the work that we are undertaking is in line with our UNCRC, our Poverty Action Group and Children's Services Plan, and that's all progressing towards keeping the promise. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Leslie. That was really interesting and informative. Lots of work and lots of developments. With that work going on, so thanks for sharing that with us. I don't think it looks like anybody's got any questions or comments for you today. I think we can obviously all agree to know the update from Jonathan and Leslie, and then I think we'd also maybe like to ask for another report to come to a future panel with further updates on this. If that would be okay, that would be great. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're on to item number 6, that's prison-based social work. So it's notification of inspection activity related to prison-based social work across Scotland in 23-24, and notice was given in July. I don't think there have been any scrutiny of prison-based social work across Scotland for over a decade. And we've also got in that report the recent inspection of HMP unit, which includes a number of examples of good practice from the prison-based social work in Greenock, particularly about the continuity of release planning and new role approach, allowing people to begin, for example, trauma recovery work prior to release. And I'm sure that's an approach that we would all welcome, and especially linked to some of the discussions that we've already been having today at the panel. So we've got PMQs with us today speaking on this report, so hand over to directly to Gail. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. As you've already summarised, the purpose of the report today is to advise the panel that at the beginning of July, the HSE received notification that there's an intention to carry out a thematic review of prison-based social work across the whole of Scotland. That's going to be undertaken jointly by the Care Inspectorate and His Majesty's Inspectorate of Prisons in Scotland. That will involve, currently there are prison-based social work teams in all of the 17 custodial establishments across Scotland. All of them will be involved as part of that inspection activity. It has a direct impact on Inverclyde Council and Inverclyde HSCP as we provide the prison-based social work service at HMP Greenock. At this point, the thematic review is expected to be quite light touch, and since we submitted this report to the panel, we have received an initial survey to go out to all the staff that are involved in prison-based social work, so that's been completed at the moment. The timescales for return of that, it's anticipated that there will be some outcome to that inspection activity around April 2024, and no doubt we will be bringing something back to the panel to update once we have some findings from the inspection. The second part of this report was just to draw the panel's attention to the recent full inspection by HMIPS into HMP Greenock, and many attendees will have had sight of that report and will have picked up some of the press coverage around that. But we just wanted to highlight that there were a couple of good practice examples picked up in terms of the prison-based social work activity within HMP Greenock that might be of interest to the panel. And those were particularly around our ongoing efforts to try and get greater continuity between prison social work support and release planning and community-based social work support, and around the support that Justice Social Work and other HSCP colleagues have given to the moving on approach, which is very relevant to some of our earlier discussions. Allows people to book in substance use and trauma recovery work whilst they're in custody in HMP Greenock, and then continue that with some of our voluntary sector partners once they're released into the community. So very positive approach to continuity of care planning for some of our residents, and hopefully relevant to some of the themes that have been mentioned already. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Gail. I don't think there's any questions or comments. Oh, Jonathan's going to come in. Thanks.
Thank you, Convener. I suppose just to add to Gail's summary, I think it's an important distinction that this is a national thematic review as opposed to an inspection this time. Having come from the care inspectorate for our item in Berkeley, I think that sometimes these national thematic reviews can feel a bit more proportionate and a bit more helpful in terms of the system-wide analysis. And really it follows as the report highlights the review through care in 2021, but also other national thematic reviews that have taken place around secure care and services for children with disabilities earlier this year as well. So the review and the staff survey will certainly be key to that. The skill set will be inevitably learning for us at a local level, but a chance for us to contribute to that positively from the perspective of which certainly greater.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. So I can agree to note the recommendations and we'll also agree that a future update following the conclusion of the review we brought to the panel. I think it's been already highlighted widely away from the panel about the state of the fabric of the prison building. So very interesting to see if any of that touches this future inspection and review as well. Okay, so we're on to item 7, the introduction of bail supervision in Inverclyde and the challenges and successes following implementation. So we're back to Gail Hughes again, speaking on that. Thanks, Gail.
Thanks. Again, this is a paper brought by Justice Social Work just for the panel's information and noting. Apologise in advance for the length of this paper. It's a little bit longer than we perhaps would have wanted it to be. However, we did want to reflect some of the planning and background work that went into the implementation of bail supervision. So some tend to be aware that part of the Scottish Government's national strategy for justice is very focused around early intervention and prevention for people. So we're very much trying to target resources at people at the early stages of their entry into the justice system. And part of that provision is around bail supervision, which is intended to, it's a social work service that supports people to comply with the conditions of their bail orders. And it's intended to provide a robust and credible alternative to custodial remand. The court may decide to make a bail supervision order for any individual in which the Procurator Fiscal has opposed bail, and Inverclyde Justice Social Work Services will carry out an assessment of that person's suitability. In Inverclyde, we introduced a bail supervision service at Greenock Sheriff Court in November of last year, and it's been perhaps more successful than we anticipated it being. You'll see from the paperwork that from the service commencing in November until the end of March of this year, we completed 166 assessments of suitability, and of those 85 were assessed as being suitable for bail supervision, with 66 orders being subsequently made. The support that's actually provided to individuals on bail supervision is quite intense in terms of social work involvement. It's very much a needs-led service, and the intention is to provide individuals who are going through that court process with support to meet needs that might impact on their offending behaviours. But part of that is that they attend to meet with one of our staff in terms of bail supervision up to 3 times a week for the duration of the period that they're on bail. I don't want to labour the point about the technical aspects of it, but I suppose it's just relevant to finish off by saying that it's very early days for the service. We're just running up into the period of being operational for about a year. But the initial feedback that we've had from partner agencies, particularly from sheriffs at Greenock Sheriff Court, has been very positive. Their view has been that it has provided them with an alternative solution to using remand. And also other partner agencies, defence agents that are involved around the court have also been positive about it. Bit of a whirlwind. Any questions?
Okay. Thanks very much, Gail. Question or comment from councillor on the first here?
Right, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Gail, for this. It's not something I knew all about. It's a really good report, kind of given a kind of primer in it. I think some of the media coverage around this has been unfortunate over the last kind of few days. In that I think there's a confusion among the public about what this is for, which is for people on bail not yet having gone through the court system and there being no conviction at that point. But just in order for people to obviously have confidence in it, I think it would just be useful if you were able to maybe tell us a little bit about how, when the paper refers to people being robustly managed, if there are breaches, just how that's handled and what happens if somebody breaches their bail conditions.
We do have fairly robust breach procedures in place which are set out in the national guidance, and the primary reason for people being breached in the bail supervision order is non-compliance, and we would usually issue somebody with a system of warnings and give them the opportunity to address that non-compliance before reporting that to the police. However, we also have the option in terms of non-compliance, significant non-compliance, or where we think that there is a significant risk to the public, to raise a bail supervision breach using the 999 process. So it is built into the national guidance that we can escalate that to a rapid emergency police response if we have that level of concern. Touch wood, we haven't had to use that so far, but we have had to use the 101 police response service to action breaches promptly.
Can I just add a very quick follow-up? Thank you for that, that's really helpful. But just in terms of you mentioned the sheriff's been quite positive about it. It also talks in the paper about police colleagues being positive about it. Could you maybe just describe that in a bit more detail?
Police colleagues, reluctant to speak on behalf of police colleagues, however, the feedback they've given me has been that they feel that it offers more robust support to individuals as opposed to the previous system. In Inverclyde, historically, there's been a high level of use of police bar reporting for individuals on bail, which is where they are instructed to report to the police station and sign a book several times a week just to monitor their movements. And the police are recognising that the involvement of social work in that type of order, rather than just having somebody sign in, gives people an earlier opportunity to be engaged in other services and to have their needs met in a positive way.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Gail, for that, and great to know that positive feedback. And I think we just need to know the implementation of it and Thank you. Okay, we're on to item 8, which is the picture of parent support at home. So I think, like Councillor Robertson said about another report earlier on, that some of the details of these reports are not necessarily new for some members of the panel. We know that the IGB has already to give an authorisation, but we've still got a number of recommendations here for the panel. And I think we want to acknowledge the work that has gone into trying to address some of the current operational risks that we've had, and find a route towards sustainability and resilience for care at home, and to recognise everything that has gone into these developments from the staff and the trade unions to ultimately get the best that we can currently deliver for everyone here in Inverclyde who needs to access care and support at home. So Alan Best is going to talk us through this report, so I'll hand over to Alan.
Thank you, Karina. Yes, as you're saying there, this report has been known to some members already and other colleagues. The report is about the future of the care and support at home service, a very valuable service that's recognised that they really are a key piece of the jigsaw in terms of how we support our community at home, and also in terms of how we ensure discharge from the acute hospital system. The service has undergone a redesign, a review that has involved colleagues, staff, HR, trade unions, looking at how the service functions just now, but looking to the future about how it needs to be developed. This is a key part of our social care workforce, and we need to move it to a social care service. And able to do that, part of the work that's been done as part of the review is looking at the complexities now that colleagues are supporting in our community. We know an ageing population with more complex conditions that need support, and how that service works in conjunction with colleagues in the health side. The review has thrown up and examined areas about recruitment and retention. We know within this part of the service, recruitment is an issue, as is retention. And these are really experienced staff, and we want to retain that experience locally so we can develop the service. So one of the outcomes of the review was to look at recommendations about moving towards, to say, a regrading of the role to a social care worker. The recommendations at point 2 outline quite a number of recommendations from the review. We also looked at the external care and support at home market. We realise it's a market that's very much interdependent in terms of what we do internally, but that external market has also struggled with recruitment and retention. And we can see that through the review, we can see that people have moved on to other out with of social care. So we know that this is an area that we need to develop. Probably going to need to 2.4. 2.4 is in the recommendations is probably one of the main recommendations, where we have developed a new job description which replaces the existing home support worker role, and we're now known as a social care worker, and that's about us developing our colleagues to be able to support a community with similar complexities, developing the roles, they're training folk, but also recognising this is a key part of our social care workforce. I'm joined today by my colleague Joyce Allen, Service Manager for the service, so see myself and Joyce with that to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Alan. Thanks for taking us through that. I'm just looking to see there's nothing in that for questions. Councillor Thursday.
Thanks very much, Kavita. Just very quickly, Alan, just again a thanks to yourself and Joyce and the other members of the team who've been doing the work on this for such a long time. I'm just wondering how, we obviously had this at the IJB, but just since then, we've obviously had a bit of time. So how's it been received by the workforce and by staff so far?
Thank you, Councillor Christopher, for yourself, Nina. I'll start off and maybe bring Joyce in if that's okay. I think it's key. This whole process has been about consultation with our colleagues and working along, and the vast majority of our colleagues have been in support of this move, and recognise that we, as an organisation, the HSCP wants to develop them, as I say, support and training, prior training. So it's been received on the whole positively. I think there's still a few questions, we're keen to answer them, but I'll maybe pass over to Joyce, who's on the line, who's really from the operational point of view, get a real feel for what's going on.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Joyce.
Thanks, convener. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
As Alan says, it has been received generally positively. I would have to say that the staff don't have any concerns really about taking on the additional tasks. This is a new job description, as Alan had said, so there is additional tasks in there, and they don't have significant concerns about taking on the new tasks. There will be training alongside that, obviously, but I would say that to represent them 100%, I would say that there are some concerns still about the grade. I would have to say that, although the majority are happy with the increase in grade that comes with the new job description. They have raised concerns that they still feel the grade is low, which is a separate issue. But I would have to be honest and say that is some of the feedback from some of the staff. And we probably agree with that as well, to be honest. But generally, it certainly has been accepted and it's been passed. And we're now at the stage we've signed the collective agreement and we're moving forward with that. And it will be backdated to the 1st of August as agreed. It's just taken us a bit longer to get through the consultation. Hopefully that answers that, convener.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks very much. I don't think there's anything else for the Joyce and Alan. So we're just going to note the recommendations, and thanks to everything that we've done on that.